So I'm currently on the phone with Lazarus. He's one of the musicians I have already currently interviewed. So I'm going to go ahead and let him remind everybody who he is and what he does.
Yes, hello, hi. Thanks again for having me. Alex, and do you prefer Alexander or Alex?
Either is fine. Alex is good.
All right. Uh, as he said, my name is Lazarus, and I'm from my own solo project called ImLazarus, and I also play in a Ramones tribute band called Cretin Avenue Hop, as well as a performance art project called Big Fucking Skull.
Excellent. So, we looked it up shortly before starting to record. We found that our last interview was April 22nd of 2021. Tell me what you've been up to in the nearly 2 years since we last spoke.
Yeah, the biggest news for me is definitely the release of my first official video and song for my solo project, ImLazarus, which is really my main focus nowadays and has been for a few years. But I've also always had side bands and projects and things for one reason or another. But I would say that's the biggest thing. And actually, the next biggest thing will be the fact that I'm planning to release another or a follow-up B-side song. Maybe not as heavily promoting the video, but definitely just sort of more of a B-side feel. And I plan to do that relatively soon here, probably in the next, hopefully this month, the coming month here, April.
Awesome. So would it be reasonable to assume that since you're putting out like a music video, there's also like a full album release that goes along with that you're also promoting?
Yeah, and that's actually been the big point of debate, really, is what's the best way to release music. And I know if any other musicians are listening, they probably have thought the same thing. And I have gone back and forth on what is the best way in the time that since we spoke, and even in the time leading up to that, where I was still working on both the first single that I released, but also I did an entire EP behind the scene, and then at the last minute kind of just decided I shouldn't release the entire EP all at once. I should just release it track by track, because I would then be able to focus my promotional attention on one track at a time. So I didn't want any of the tracks, because I feel they're all good, and I'm sure, as any songwriter does, they want them all to get attention, hopefully, and hope that some of them click with people.
Yeah, and kind of trickling them out like that kind of games the algorithm to kind of show that you're putting material and content out more consistently.
That's probably the prevailing wisdom right now, but who knows? Like, I hesitate to give any advice to people on in regards to social media, because I think we're all just trying to keep up with the ever-changing nature of it. And yeah, today at this moment, I think it's the best strategy, but who knows? By the next time we talk, I could be cursing my name for having done it this way. I don't know.
Yeah, it really depends. Some of the people I've interviewed have talked about doing like monthly releases, and to me that just seems like setting yourself up for failure, because how many months in a row can you really put something out consistently and not end up just burning yourself out?
Yeah, I mean, unless you've really banked a good amount of content ahead of time, which is also tough to do, but it's doable. But yeah, for me, that would be a little too frequently. More ideal, I think, would be like 6 to 8 weeks between songs. Sure. And I've gone a little longer between that for my first one to my second one here, only because I really wanted to dot every I and cross every T and leave no stone unturned, in the sense of like reaching out to all kinds of just different emails and people I've had over the years that I've built up of years and years of playing in different bands and contacts. This is the one where I kind of tried to push every chip in, so to speak, to get my debut song heard, especially because I feel it's just so unique too. And that's the one thing that the overall comment I've gotten the most is that it has a really unique sound. It's not quite describable by genre. You might say pop, you might say rock, you might say like an old school style of rock and roll kind of thing.
All right, well, let's get into some details about that. I kind of want to hear about your process of producing the video for it, what was kind of the creative process to develop the visual art? What was the aesthetic you were going for? Give me some information about that.
Yeah. Uh, the process was actually, or the video process, took another bit of time and kind of hung things up for a while there too, because initially I had one idea where it was going to be very much like a tracking shot, which is like, if anyone's familiar with the famous Goodfellas scene where they're going in the back door, or The Shining has some very famous tracking shots where basically the camera is just following is locked onto a character throughout a changing scenario of backgrounds and sorts. And I had this sort of elaborate tracking shot planned out that would require obviously somebody else to film me as I'm making my way through these different areas and stage settings and blah blah blah. But that became too difficult for a number of reasons. Like it was too grandiose of an idea, and even that was scaled down from a previous idea I had, which was I wanted to film my music video originally at an actual wedding, because the song itself kind of references weddings in a tongue-in-cheek way or in sort of a comedic fashion. And what it ultimately came down to is I decided, okay, I need an idea where I can both shoot it myself and perform in the video. So what I then decided, or kind of came to the conclusion of, was I need something where it's basically I set a still image, and the chaos, or sort of it became inverted, or the exact opposite of what I thought, where I would have been sort of the still image in a changing array of backgrounds, and instead it became a single background and me in a variety of changing images.
That's kind of cool. And so, did you just kind of pick the background for it and then pose a bunch of different times, or how did you go about kind of creating that?
Yeah, basically. What I did is I filmed the whole thing with my phone actually, and obviously the video I'm referring to, people can look up on my YouTube channel. That would just be, you put in my name, I'm Lazarus. That's the letters I am, and then my name, Lazarus. You type that into YouTube, all one word, I'm Lazarus, and my stuff should come right up. As far as I can tell, I've kind of tested it out on. I have different friends like, hey, type my name in and see how for search engine optimization. I'm always curious how easy it is for someone to find me, and yeah, it should pop right up and people can see what I'm talking about. And what it came down to was I filmed it on my phone, and I just picked a weekend where I knew, because it took me about 2 days to shoot it because I was still kind of dressing the room. And if you see the video, you'll know why. You'll kind of see the chaos of the background in the setting that I've kind of got picked out. And then once I planted my phone on the tripod, I couldn't move it for like 2 days. And so I live with a couple guys in like the music business or that are musicians. And I had to pick a weekend where everyone was out of the house and everything. And the dogs were still around. They make an appearance in the couple appearances in the videos. They're right here next to me. Actually, I just got home from band practice tonight. But
Nice.
but yeah, so picked planted my phone. I taped the tripod down to the ground and like put my phone in there, and then I didn't use my phone the entire weekend. I turned it on airplane mode. I told a couple people who might be worried, I said, don't worry, I'm kind of going off the radar for that. You can still like hit me up via messenger, I could still get on my computer and everything, but I said don't bother trying to text me because I'm not using my phone this weekend, because I'm not moving it once I shoot that first frame, because then I have to preserve whatever that angle is as best I can.
Tell me about the song that you kind of have accompanying it. Obviously, you kind of went into details about what you kind of found to be your ideal release schedule, and then you mentioned this song has kind of a specific sound to it that doesn't fit a genre. But give me some more details about the song and then producing it and then getting it released.
Yeah. So the song itself is very specifically inspired by the artist Harry Nilsson, who dates back to like the Beatles days. He's a guy who was literally kind of hanging out with the Beatles back in the day. And at one point, I think John and Paul even cited him as their favorite artist. So he's always been a favorite of mine because I've always loved that sort of Beatlesy sound because he has a similar sound to the Beatles. And it was the funniest thing. I heard this song by Harry Nilsson called "Marching Down Broadway," and I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh man, this thing it's got a ragtime feel to it, and I don't know if that's hard to explain for if anyone doesn't already know what that is. But if they're aware of Scott Joplin, the entertainer, I believe is what it's called.
Hmm.
The song it goes bum 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 bum.
Hmm. Yeah.
People might recognize that melody or that sort of jaunty piano. It's notorious for its kind of bounce and
Hmm.
and its coordination between the left and the right hand, sort of filling the space like that. And so I'm digging this song, and just as I think it's going to get cooking, the song ends like, 50 seconds or a minute into it. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, totally left me, like, pulled the rug out from under me. And so I get this like melody stuck in my head that's based initially on that song, but it's where I thought the song was going, and then it just never went there. And I looked it up. I was like, did I get a bum version of this? Like, I thought maybe I had like a weird track that cut out for something, but nope, that was the actual song. And so I said, well, I'm going to finish this song and not finish it, but end up writing a song of like what I thought the song was going to be. And so if anyone was to listen to the two back to back, you'd hear pretty clearly in the first couple of seconds the exact kind of same attitude and a bouncy nature to it, along with like one or two like melodic notes, like the first two or three notes, because I always get the same look from people where they look at me like, oh, dude, I don't know, that's a little too close. And then after about the fifth or sixth note, they're like, oh, no, wait, I see how you diverted there and went into your own thing. But I like it because it pays homage and it's sort of meant to be a nod to a very, very obscure song by a relatively obscure artist. Most people would know Harry Nilsson from the song "Put the Lime in the Coconut and Drink It All Up," and
Sure.
he also did "One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do." But the version people know is the Three Dog Night version. But Harry Nilsson
Mm.
actually wrote that, and he's got other songs that people know. But so the point is like you might already get the idea from just those two songs. Like they're kind of quirky and sort of off kilter and zany. I don't know. You see, that's the thing is like trying to promote this musically became kind of tough, but I knew I could target Harry Nilsson fans, the Paul McCartney Beatles fans. Like if people like John Lennon, they might not like my stuff as much, but if you're a big Paul McCartney fan, you're probably really going to dig my stuff. And then the last one is Randy Newman. So the guy who did like the "You Got a Friend in Me." His music is piano driven and has a very similar thing to it. And that's the big thing with this first single of mine, first solo single is I wanted it to be piano driven because I've always been known for guitar, rock, street punk, even music. And I really wanted to come out the gate with something different that was heavily piano driven and just unlike anything I'd ever done before, and a lot, very unlike anything anyone is doing right now, for sure. And that's the sort of the inception process of it. And then production wise, it was kind of easy to just listen to uh, some of that music and take a few cues and recording it. Just did that ourselves at home. Myself and my friend Matt Von Endy kind of helped me every step of the way between that and my own little setup at my own house. Pretty much recorded and edited and mixed and mastered everything ourselves. And yeah, complete in-house thing. Literally printed my own CDs, like printed off the paper and busted out old jewel cases from previous bands, that CDs I didn't sell and could never possibly sell because I've got 1,000 copies of a defunct band. And so I figure, well, I'm gonna break open these jewel cases and reuse them to make my debut single. Like it's just a burned disc and everything, but it's homemade, and I put a little homemade message on the inside of each one and kind of numbered them. I think I did 50, just a small run.
Awesome. That's cool. It's a nice little touch. So before we get to, putting out your links and everything, why don't you kind of update us about what's going on with your other projects as well?
Yeah. So I play in a Ramones tribute band, and that uh, harkens back to the days of my very first band, which was heavily Ramones based and influenced. And my current band is a Ramones tribute band, and it's called Cretin Avenue Hop. And we call it that because Cretin Avenue is a street here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And legend has it, as a couple of Ramones books report, that the Ramones actually were inspired by the word or the song to write their song Cretin Hop by being on tour in St. Paul, Minnesota, and seeing Cretin Avenue. And so there, other people have sort of used similar kind of names, both original and cover or tribute bands rather. But yeah, we always felt a pretty strong claim to it for that reason. And that really comes down to two things, like my love of the Ramones, and also at the time my solo music. I just felt like I was getting too soft, because like I'd kind of overcorrected too much, because like I said, I came from a way more punk rock background, and initially based on the Ramones, and then got way into more like a hardcore street punk thing. And so very much not, like I said, not what I'm doing currently. But I actually lost my train of thought with that. What was I saying?
You're talking about how you kind of corrected when you came from your punk rock roots.
Oh, the overcorrection. Yeah. So what I was getting at there is, like, I going solo and playing like acoustic initially, I was kind of overcorrected into too soft and acoustic of an artist. And I felt like my vocals weren't strengthening the way I wanted them to. And so I was thinking to myself, I was literally just watching a Ramones DVD that I have one day. And I was like, oh man, that's, like, because I wanted to play music with loud guitars, but that I could sing relatively clean vocals over, because that's my style. I don't have like the grittiest voice in the world that's relatively or clean. And then I'm simultaneously watching the Ramones DVD, and the light bulb goes off, because I already know a ton of their songs anyways. And yeah, so I decided, oh, that was a great way to both keep my stamina up with my guitar playing, because I do both playing guitar and lead vocals in the band. So I'm actually pulling double duty, because there were Johnny and Joey Ramone were two separate people, but I'm doing both because I really wanted to challenge myself to both play and sing while I was playing. Plus, I'm like doing a bunch of energetic stuff. I'm running around up there. I just listened back to a board mix we had from a show in St. Cloud, Minnesota from the other night. And I definitely sound winded at times, but like I said, it's almost an exercise in stamina doing the Ramones thing, because it's really helped me become a better vocalist and a more conditioned guitarist, for that I can apply to my solo music. And that was sort of the whole idea behind that.
Awesome. And then you said you had another project as well?
So yeah, the other band, that's just a band that I've happened to have been a fan of for 15 years. They're a local punk rock band that are just kind of legendary around Minneapolis. The band is called Big Fucking Skull, and it's sort of I say it's an art project because it's like performance art. We all dress up in skull paint, like the black and white, like I think people are familiar with the Halloween kind of skull look. And then we pour fake blood on ourselves to make our faces look all bloody. So kind of a very Halloween themed band. A lot of people would immediately kind of think Misfits, because the music is sort of along those lines as well. Though I would say there's definitely some other bands that they sound more like than the Misfits. But and by the way, there's videos of me getting the blood and makeup done too on my YouTube channel as well. We can mention that later, the link and everything. But yeah, so that band, I just got asked to stand in as the bass player for a music video that they did, because they're doing a reunion tour this Halloween, Friday the 13th to Halloween. Actually, oh yeah, I think I don't think there's any reason I can't say that. That's the plan. Plans obviously change, but yeah, and it's going to be an East Coast tour. So I don't know. I imagine all the major East Coast cities. And yeah, they asked me to then fill in on bass for that. Well, not fill in, but just actually join as a permanent member on bass. And it's a lot of songs I already knew, and they're relatively simple punk rock songs that I can grasp pretty quickly and get down. But the big draw, or the thing I really like, is sort of the caricature of it. The fact that you put on this skull makeup, and then it's all about kind of mean mugging the camera, and because all the songs too are just kind of ridiculous. They're all about skulls that go around and kill people. Like
Nice.
it's not meant to be taken seriously. The lyrics are like really funny half the time, and I like a good dose of humor in my music, as I've mentioned pretty often before whenever I get the chance to. And even in my solo music, even in my debut release, the same, it's called Same Old Song, the video we were referring to before, and there's a good amount of humor in both the video and the music and lyrics themselves, because that's just very much part of my personality. I love comedy. I love Family Guy and South Park and funny movies and all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned checking out your YouTube channel for the various things you have going on. Why don't you throw
Oh,
out
did I
your
mention that?
Why don't you throw out your links there so people can find you?
Yeah. So basically, my link for everything is I'm Lazarus Music. That's the letters I am, and then my name Lazarus, and then music after that. And it's basically all just one word. And that'd be at Facebook, at Twitter, at YouTube. I think it's at YouTube as well, at Instagram. All the socials. That'll be my handle. And yeah, I mean, people feel free to check me out wherever you check people out. But yeah, as I said, I encourage people to check out the video, because there's a decent amount of humor in there that you can't get just listening to the track itself. And there's a not the relation between the song and the video may not be immediately apparent, but it was shot sort of during the COVID times, and taking that into account, there is an element of looking back on it. I didn't even realize this at the time, but there's an element of sort of that stir crazy. What do they call it? Like cabin fever, where
Sure.
you're sort of jarred up, because it kind of looks like, in retrospect, like looking back on it, kind of looks like I'm bouncing off the walls, literally.
Well, since you mentioned that, to kind of close out the interview, what do you think is something that, coming out of the pandemic or the past couple of years that, you found to kind of, stabilize yourself mentally? What's something you've learned?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess for me, it was more about just coexisting with people, because my daily schedule and routine didn't change all that much. But the thing is my roommates were all of a sudden home 24/7, and that was different. I wasn't quite used to that, and so yeah, for me, it became, I think I learned to be a more patient and tolerant person, and learn to like express myself in more frequent and healthy way during the pandemic. Like I think I got better people skills during the pandemic, just because then having the mask on, you had to articulate a little bit more. Yeah, so I guess yeah, oddly enough, what I never thought about this, honestly. It never even occurred to me, but I would say probably what I've gained in the most in the last like year or two is people skills, and probably become a little bit nicer and more kinder, gentler of a person. So yeah, oddly enough, nothing musical at all. Just yeah.